You know, guys, the way the politicians in this country are so out of touch with reality and out of touch with the ideas, I'm starting to come to terms with the fact that some of the issues that we have been complaining about for a long time are never going to be fixed. And it is painful because these politicians are still popular amongst a lot of South Africans, despite the fact that they don't have the ideas how to take the country forward, despite the fact that they are totally out of touch with reality. They are still popular amongst the South Africans. When we look at issues like health and when we look at issues like education, I have realized that these issues are never going to be fixed. And the reason why these issues are never going to be fixed, it is because the politicians live a very different life from the people that they supposedly represent. When you look at the lives that politicians are living and when you look at the lives that average South Africans are living, it's day and night. It's day and night. So we as South Africans are here at the bottom. We are screaming on top of our lungs and saying these people must look at these problems that we are facing and actually do something about these problems that we are facing. But truth of the matter is that these people are so detached from the reality of the majority that it is hard for them to take this issue seriously. We can sit here and complain about the education and how bad the education system is, how bad the public education is, the fact that there are no facilities in our public schools, the fact that the kind of education that the children are receiving in this country, it is the lowest of the low. I mean, we cannot even compete with some of the children outside in the world, and there is nothing that these politicians are doing or even attempting to do. And that is because these politicians, they don't care. Their children don't have to attend the public schools. Their children are there in private schools. That's why even when sometimes when we speak about this with this issue of healthcare and saying that and screaming on top of our lungs to say that please guys, can you please fix the clinics? Can you please fix the hospitals, guys? It is a mess in these public health facilities. They don't care about that, and it is so hard for them to care because they are not even using the facilities that majority of the people are using. So this is a conversation that we as South Africans should have had with the politicians a long time ago. This is something that we as the people should have forced the government to say that if you work for the government, you must take your children to public schools. If you are a government official and you are sick, you must go to public hospital. And I can assure you today that if we as the people actually force these people to take their children to public schools, if we force these people to go to public hospitals whenever they are sick or whenever their family members are sick, these issues are going to be taken seriously. But because the politicians are celebrities amongst the majority of the people in this country, it is okay for these politicians to actually live a life that is completely different from the people that they are representing. And for some reason, the same people actually believe that those politicians are going to give a damn about the issues that they are facing on the ground. This is a mess. This is a mess. I mean, you look at issues again, like the issues of the immigration. It is not so hard for the politicians to go out on national television to beg South Africans to have mercy on illegal immigrants that are in this country, that are misusing the resources that are being paid for by hardworking South Africans. It is not hard for these people to go out and beg for mercy on behalf of these immigrants. It is because these immigrants, they don't have to live with them. They don't have to live with them. They open the borders and they come with all of the excuses why the borders are open, and at the same time they beg you to allow these people to come into your community. The reason they do that is because where these politicians live, the illegal immigrants will never live. The illegal immigrants will never ever be allowed anywhere near where the politicians are living. And we as South Africans, we have never actually confronted these people about these issues that we are trying to get fixed. It is sad. That's why I'm saying that I'm starting to come to terms with the fact that some of these issues that we have been complaining about for the longest of times, the reason why they are not being attended is because the politicians are completely detached from the reality of the people on the ground. They are completely detached.
I had the privilege of sitting with Ntate Padi Lihutla, the ex-statistician general. He quoted recent numbers. 71% of white people in South Africa are under medical aid and use private healthcare. 71%. 9% of black people have medical aid and are under private healthcare. Now, legacies of apartheid, definitely. Socioeconomic factors, of course. A woeful education system, definitely. The solution that the ANC government came up with, today we call it the GNU, with the DA and others, is NHI, trying to copy Obamacare. This thing that everyone will be included. Now, outside of the data that I gave you, roughly 10% of our population has access to private healthcare and medical aid. 10%. The other 90%, understand 10% is 6.3 million. The other 90%, over 50 million people, maybe over 55 million people, rely on public clinics.
When you count the illegal immigrants, maybe let's say 60 million.
Public hospitals. And what government has decided to do is to bring all of these under one umbrella. And it's still tricky how they explain it, by the way. Because people are like, oh, private hospitals won't exist anymore. No, they will. What government is doing is this. You as an ordinary...
But they did say that they want to get rid of medical aid by 2029. This is not a hearsay. This is something that the government of this country said, that they want to get rid of the medical aid by 2029.
Citizen, 90% that can't afford, will be able to use private healthcare, practices, clinics, hospitals, and then they'll build government. For me, the easiest way to explain it is NSFAS. They're going to have this fund, the National Health Insurance, where the poor child who can't afford to go to UCT gets paid for by government. So you're like, oh, so government is going to pay for poor people to go into the, oh, done. Hey, unfortunately, it's not done. Because that's not actually what they're doing. Outside of obviously the privileged being annoyed, no, we can't be sitting with these people, they're going to crowd our, sure, whatever. The budget of private healthcare, your discoveries, your gems, all these medical aids that are out there, schemes, and the private medical clinics and all these private hospitals, the money that they make a year is almost comparable to the budget of health from government. 90% of the population relies on a budget that is the equivalent of the budget of 10% of the population. The 10%, of course, is people paying their medical aid. People paying out of pocket. Very expensive. But 90% budget is the same as 10%. And government saying, no, Yazin, so what we're going to do is we're going to dip here in this money here. And that's where people that pay medical aid and the medical aid schemes, and they're like, fuck that. So we've built these businesses and you guys want to dip here to supplement here. That's bullshit. Now, elite people have got their problems. They've got their arrogance. They've got their racism, which of course we need to address and resolve. Not here. Not here. Our government has failed to fix and upgrade public healthcare, which serves 90% of the people.
Fact.
And instead of taking accountability and trying to figure out how to fix this, they want to come and mess with the private sector. This is the equivalent of government saying, our education is so shit. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the money from private schools to pay for kids here in public schools that we fucked up to go and study at private schools. That's my understanding. Other people obviously correct me because, like I said, the way it gets explained, many people are still not sure of what's going on.
And I guess like the most frustrating part is because none of the politicians have actually went on television and acknowledged that the way the state of our healthcare is because of them. They have never acknowledged Aaron Motsoaledi has never acknowledged that the way the hospitals are, it is because of the ANC government. They have never acknowledged that the fact that our education system is shit, like Penuel says, our schools, the infrastructure is horrible. It is because of them. They have never acknowledged. And I guess this is the most frustrating part. It is the most frustrating part because every time when these people speak about the NHI, as soon as they speak about the NHI, the first thing that people will say is that, why can't you guys focus on fixing the current healthcare system that we have? Why can't you fix the healthcare system, the healthcare facilities that we have, instead of just lying to the people and saying that these people will now be able to go to these private hospitals and they will have the government card and the government will actually take care of the bill, and in the meantime these people will actually be destroying these private hospitals. Why can't you just take accountability for the mess that you have made and actually try to fix this mess that you have made before you go and damage the private sector? Why is it so hard for these people to actually acknowledge that? Why is it so hard? And it is so frustrating because this is something that people say over and over and over again. And when people say these things, the ANC is quick to come out to say that, no, these people, they don't want the poor people to get a better health care. You don't want the poor people to get the better health care. They ignore the fact that the people would not even be talking about getting the better health care if the public hospitals were good. If the public hospitals were good, do you think that the majority of the people would actually care about going to Mediclinic? Why would you care going to Mediclinic when you know that you can get the same kind of treatment in your public school, in your public hospital? Why? Why is it so hard for them to actually acknowledge and actually come up with the ideas to fix this, instead of going to the public sector, to the private sector, and trying to mess up everything in the private sector?
Our government refuses to take accountability for their fuck-ups and to try and fix their fuck-ups. And if they cannot fix them, to move out of the way. To be like, hey, you know what? We tried and failed. Administration is horrible. Corruption is horrible. Babita was murdered for blowing the whistle on corruption at the Gauteng Department of Health. People have been linked about Dr. Zweli Mkhize, who at some point was a presidential hopeful. He was the Minister of Health at some point. His son was enjoying tenders under digital vibes. People die in the hospitals. People don't want to be there. People feel like walking into a government hospital or clinic is asking for a death sentence. Those are my thoughts on the NHI Act. Now, when we speak about this is part of my problem. Government is the biggest employer in this country. I think they've got over 1.3 million, maybe, employees, who they pay well, relatively. Government employees are on arguably one of the best medical aid schemes in the country, GEMS. I think it's called the Government Employee Medical Scheme. It's brilliant. It even allows women, I think, to have like breast reduction. Things that are like cosmetic. Why are government employees allowed to use private services?
Exactly.
Should they not be the first people to use public? Okay. Should the money that they send to private not be ring-fenced and then brought to public? That's number one. And someone has said before that if you got the middle class and upper middle class to use the poorest public schools and to use the baddest public hospitals and clinics, they will automatically improve. Why? Because those people are going to complain. It's clever blacks. It's white people. It's Indians and coloreds that are better off, that live in suburbia. They will not stand for bullshit in that space. So they will complain. The reason these things are not getting better is because the poorest, most undereducated people are there. They don't know the right channels to complain. They don't know how to hold people to account. So take these private healthcare and medical aid blacks that work for government and force them to use public healthcare and watch what happens.
It is going to improve.
And you could even argue the same with private schools. Why is it that teachers that teach in the public schools get to send their kids to private schools? No, bring them back here. You can't be selling a product to people that you don't want for your own children. No, Baba. Here. That was the first issue. The second issue, which may even be worse, we live in a country where we have allowed politicians, members of parliament, ministers, the president and deputy, the speaker of parliament, the premier of provinces, the MECs in the provinces, the mayors, the MMCs in the mayoral offices, the ward councillors and the like. We live in a country that allows politicians to buy shares in companies that compete with the work they're meant to do. Why is it that MPs can buy shares in private healthcare, in Discovery, in Mediclinic, but they're meant to fix public? Just take a moment to think about it. I've got, let's say, for example, 100,000 Rand invested in Discovery, Mediclinic and the like. I would like that share portfolio to go up. I'd like more people to sign up. I'd like it to make more profit so I can become richer. But at the same time, I work in a space where I'm meant to be fixing public healthcare. Do you know that if I fix public healthcare, people are going to leave medical aid and they're going to leave private hospitals and they're going to jump here? Which means what? It means my share portfolio goes down in value. It's called a conflict of interest. How is it that politicians are allowed to have shares in companies that are competing with government work? You have shares in Curo, it's owned by Stadio. You have shares in Stadio, but you're meant to be fixing public education. You have shares in PEP or in whichever companies own Aramax and these courier companies. You have shares there, but you're meant to be looking after the post office, which has been destroyed, because you want your share portfolio to go up in these courier businesses that are private, and you've destroyed these public goods. Someone somewhere needs to at some point put their foot down and say, there is no government employee that is going to send their kids to private schools. You will send your kids to public schools. And if anything, we want to send your kids to the average public school so that you guys can bump up your service. No government employee is allowed to use private healthcare. You will use public healthcare because we need you guys that serve here to make sure that the service is better so that you and your family can come here. We will not allow you to buy shares in these companies that conflict with the work that we're doing because we're meant to serve the people and not to be serving our share portfolio. That needs to be resolved.
This is how corrupt things are in this country. This is how corrupt things are in this country, man. And I really loved this video. Because it made me think about a lot of things. I really love this video, man. It is strange, man. It is strange the way things are happening in this country. And for some reason, we as the people we are expecting things to change. But the truth of the matter is that they are never going to change. They are not going to change. These things that we want to be changed, they are never going to be changed for all the reasons that Penuel has just outlined. And this just shows you how corrupt the South African government is. It just shows you how corrupt the politicians in this country are. It just shows you that. And the fact that we have the voters that think that everything is okay, it makes everything worse. It is sad, man. It is sad. I mean, guys, please tell me what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button and the most important part is subscribe. My name is Thomas Mabaso. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.